My name is Melissa Hornaday, and I'm with the Organic Farming Research Foundation. I've been hired as a Great Lakes organizer for the state of Michigan because we understand now that Michigan is really important in the Farm Bill campaign process. And one of the things that I did want to talk about just quickly is that there's a provision in the Farm Bill that supports organic research and data collection, and that's a really important thing. Organics is growing. It's growing really fast. It's a strong movement within agriculture, and it's a $29 billion a year industry. And right now, I believe there's something like 14,500 organic farms, and it's really important that we be able to keep up with what's happening and survey these farmers. And I believe the first national organic farming survey wasn't until 2008. So funding through the Farm Bill helps us make sure we know what's going on with our organic farmers. So I'm working specifically with certified organic farmers. I'm a first-generation organic farmer looking for land right now. So if any of you in the room tonight are organic farmers or know organic farmers, please say hi to me because I am trying to get people signed up for farmer advocacy trainings across the state. And also, if you are not a farmer but you are interested in the Farm Bill because it affects you, we have an action network that you can sign up for, and you'll get emails from me letting you know when listening sessions will be starting, because it's really important that Debbie Stavenaw's office hears from us and knows that this is a really big deal to everyone in Michigan, not just farmers.
My name's Lynna. I work for Food and Water Watch. For those of you who don't know who we are, we're a national organization working locally in Michigan, and we work to make sure that all people have access to safe, affordable, and sustainably produced food and water. And so I want to let you know how you can get involved in the Farm Bill, and I have a couple actions you can take before you even leave here tonight. And I wanted to let you know about one thing, and this is kind of all of this bigger project that we're doing right now. We're doing our Fair Farm road trip this summer, and we are in the middle of it right now. We're going to be going to 20 cities in 30 days talking to people about the Farm Bill. And we'll be in Michigan this Saturday through Tuesday. And so we have two actions that folks can take, and one is a petition to Senator Stabenow asking her before she starts the business of the 2012 Farm Bill that she finish up some of the things from the 2008 Farm Bill, mainly implementing the Fair Livestock Marketing Rules, or the GIPSA rule, which makes it so that livestock producers get fair contracts. And then providing funding in the 2012 budget for all the programs that were mentioned tonight, those important beginning farmer programs, organic programs, CSP programs. So I'm going to circulate this. And then the other thing is we're collecting postcards, which we'll be giving to her staff when we meet with them this coming Monday. And our postcards are asking her to support a fair farm bill, include provisions that level the playing field for farmers, make markets fair for farmers and consumers, ensure food security, make healthy food accessible for all people, and help to rebuild the local infrastructure. So those are a couple things you can do right now, and I'll circulate these. The last thing is we're doing 2 activist meetups in the area this weekend, and I have flyers over here. We'll be meeting in Detroit on Saturday at 5 o'clock at the Majestic Cafe, and we'll be meeting on Sunday at the Arbor Brewing Company in Ann Arbor at 3.
I just want to thank again all of our presenters for the evening for lending their expertise. Thank you very much for helping to make this a success. Now we're ready for audience discussion and questions. I'm going to invite up Jennifer Fike.
One thing that I wanted to mention is that Food System Economic Partnership, otherwise known as FSEP, is a member of the National Sustainable Ag Coalition. And even though the Beginning Farmer and Rancher program is not slated to be included in the 2012 Farm Bill, there is legislation that is being drafted by NSAC to at least have it on the, what's that? National Sustainable Ag Coalition. So they're introducing some legislation that will bring attention to the beginning farmer program. So it's kind of like they're saying this needs to be funded in the 2012 Farm Bill, and this is what we see needs to happen. And I'm going to be sending out some information about that legislation once NSAC has it written, but then we will be asking folks to contact their legislators, senators, and reps to be able to support that legislation, and they're actually going to be looking for a sponsor. I think they have a sponsor right now, but looking for other sponsors of that proposed legislation. I can talk about the Four Seasons Produce Co-op that one of our staff members has been working on. Jane Bush, she is a farmer from the Charlotte area, and she works for FSEP in business development. And she's been working with a number of producers around the state. These are farmers that have small operations, and one of the challenges with trying to, these smaller scale farmers, is being able to sell to an institution, because a larger institution like a hospital wants a larger volume of produce. So what Jane has done is some grassroots organizing with farmers in many counties in Southeast and Mid-Michigan on being able to grow. She started with spinach, so let's just focus on one crop, help them with determining production schedules and helping them with pricing, and then branding. So she's helped them form this co-op. It's an entity called the Four Seasons Produce Co-op, again, growing all year round to help meet the local food demand. And now these producers, I think it was March, just made their first sale to Allegiance Hospital in Jackson County, which was great. It was a great effort of seeing these small-scale producers be able to make a contract with the hospital, and now we're seeing that grow. They're able to supply the hospital each week, and now the hospital is looking for more local produce, and now the co-op is, they're in tomato production and other crops as well. So that's what I would say is a creative way to be able to meet the demand for local produce with being able to help our smaller scale farmers meet the larger demand from these institutions. And we have applied for Farm Bill funding. The co-op, actually, I should say, has applied for Farm Bill funding to be able to support those efforts. They've applied for a Farmers Market Promotion Program grant to help with some infrastructure costs for that operation, and they are going to be applying for the socially disadvantaged grant as well. So those are some of the opportunities within the Farm Bill funding to help some of these creative ventures get funded. But then looking at some, I would say, community foundations and other support like that can leverage because one of the challenges with federal grants is that there's a match component of it. So you have to be, as an organization or a group of producers or as a business, be able to come up with money, a certain percentage of money within that grant to be able to apply for more money throughout that grant. So coming up with, if you're just a fledgling organization that's getting up off the ground, to be able to have match money, and sometimes it's cash, it's not like a donation of time, it's really difficult for these startup organizations. And so there are Farm Bill programs that don't have that match dollar requirement, which is quite an incentive for some of these farm operations and producers to go after the funding for that. And one of those, for example, was the Rural Business Opportunities Grant through USDA Rural Development that did not have a match requirement. But this grant is extremely competitive. Last year, only 27 groups were funded out of it, and that's a national grant. So only 27 out of the whole U.S. were funded out of it. So again, they're highly competitive, but there are opportunities. And again, with having Senator Stabenow as chair of the Senate Ag Committee, that's a great opportunity to bring attention and funding to the state. Sure. The question was, is the Michigan Food Policy Council still functioning? And the other question was, there's the Washtenaw County Food Policy Council is in the planning stages, and what's going on with that, and what are some of the plans for that? Did I get that right? So yes, the Michigan Food Policy Council, the person who is running the Michigan Food Policy Council, her last day is tomorrow, and so her name is Kirsten Simmons, and she's going back to grad school. So, but there is a Michigan Food Policy Council, and Amanda Edmonds from Growing Hope was recently appointed to the Michigan Food Policy Council. So I think they're looking at what do we want to do as kind of new members are being brought into it. Again, it's an appointment. There are certain seats reserved on the Michigan Food Policy Council for certain sectors of the industry, and then there are kind of some, I think, citizen at large appointments as well. But this group, again, there's some older members who have been on the council and some new members as well. They're looking at, okay, what can we dive into? There were some task forces that were created early on that were focused on food access, business development within the food system, and some other institutional purchasing. And there were some recommendations out of those task forces, so I'm not sure if the Michigan Food Policy Council is going to look back at what those recommendations were and then move forward. I think they're still trying to find their way with some of the new members. But we've tried to make the case that there needs to be a connection between the state, at the state level, the Michigan Food Policy Council, and what's happening at the county level, because there's a lot of activity happening around the state with counties and even smaller city groups wanting to form food policy councils. So Detroit has a food policy council. There's a Greater Grand Rapids Food Systems Council. There are some other groups, and the state had granted some various organizations some seed money to begin planning for Food Policy Council formation. And Washtenaw County Public Health had received a grant to explore this, and they're actually going after additional funding, kind of move it into the next step. But we're going to be, we want to make sure that at the Washtenaw County Food Policy Council that, again, certain groups are represented at the table. We don't have our bylaws, it'll be kind of when this group forms will be, that group will determine what the bylaws are, but we want to make sure that those within food access are represented, that those farmers are represented, distributors, hunger advocates, public health officials, and we're looking at possibly this Food Policy Council being a committee of the Board of Commissioners for Washtenaw County, so then we could make sure that some of the things that we want to work on, which is some best practices for institutional purchasing at the county level, we have that connection with our politicians and can advocate for appropriate legislation. Yeah, it's that economic impact of agriculture that really resonates with policymakers. And again, it's the second leading industry in the state, and it continues to grow as other sectors have declined. Agriculture has continued to grow, which is great. The governor, I was at the governor's summit on production agriculture last week, and they're looking at what can we do to, again, continue to grow the industry. There is a large focus on exports. So the state wants to double exports in the next 5 years. So that's an opportunity for some of our larger producers. Again, it doesn't get at the staying in the community and creating economic opportunity within a community, but there are those producers who want to export, and I think it's an opportunity for them. But I think the governor is also aware of and interested in wanting to increase healthy food consumption for food that is grown within the state. So I think that's a real opportunity for organizations like FSEP and Growing Hope and others to make that case at the state level about increasing our health outcomes and also promoting economic activity within our regions. Well, I think having events like this is we're trying to do outreach into the community to bring attention to what's in the Farm Bill, because I think many people don't realize where the funding is coming from for food access. And so I think trying to bring attention to that, and then the need to retain that funding to support those who are most at risk, is really key to getting the word out. And so we're trying to do what we can and also connect with other groups within other nonprofits in our region who are directly working with clients like Growing Hope and Food Gatherers in Washtenaw County and other groups really around Southeast Michigan to make the case with the clients that are utilizing these benefits. Well, I mean, I think just the general public, because again, I think people don't, well, there's a disconnect between, I think with many people about where their food is actually coming from, and so really trying to make that connection with people. However, that said, one of the growth areas in agriculture is for Michigan-grown products. So some of the folks within our organization have seen that is an area of opportunity, because as our economy has suffered, people say, what can I do on a personal or local level? Well, I can support Michigan farmers by buying this Michigan product. And so I think that's kind of continuing that thought process, but then kind of taking it to the next step of let's support some of these things within Michigan that the Farm Bill funding comes to. So looking at the Specialty Crop Block Grant program, which supports the producers that are growing the wide variety of produce that's produced here is one example, but really trying to make that connection with the general public about the need and the importance of the Farm Bill. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. Thanks, Lauren Malash.